challenges from the past week's class. Any challenges so far? Um, any issues? Like how many people tried to play around with what we did in class last week? And then if you did you encounter any challenge? Do you have any question? I know a few people reached out to me to ask some questions, which was quite commendable because that means they actually tried to do something. So I want to hear from you guys. Did you try? And if you did, do you have any challenge that you want me to, or any questions, anything you want me to like clarify before we start today's session? I hope you guys can hear me too.
Yes, we can hear you. I don't have any.
Yes, I can hear. I have one. I don't have, so I was able to do mine.
Yes, I can
Finish.
hear you.
Okay, all right. So that means everybody is clear. Henry mentioned that a couple of persons were having some challenges trying to push their work to GitHub. Um, do you still have that? I was telling him, okay, we can, if a number of persons have the challenge, we can go over how to do that before we start the class for today. So would you want me to do that, or should we just go over to what we have for the class today?
Um, I think it will be best if
Yes, we
you
can go over it.
go over it. Let's just see it.
Yes, it's better.
Like for me, I discovered how to use master instead of main.
Okay, all right. A minute, please. Okay, sorry. All right, so I'll share my screen. And then let me know when you can see my screen so that can you see my screen?
Yes,
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 we
yes,
can.
yes. Your screen is up.
Okay, so okay, so first I'll just take a few minutes to like go over what it's like. So I believe you all have GitHub accounts. So if you don't have, then you need to create one. So for you to be able to push your work to GitHub, there are a couple of ways you can actually do that. First, you can basically try to create a repository on GitHub. and then clone the repository to your local machine. Then go into that repository and then do your work there, and then you can push, right? Because it's already a repository that is recognized remotely, right? So that's one way to do that. It's actually one of the simplest way to do that. So you can, I don't know if I should demonstrate that, but so you can basically go to your Git repository, create a new repository, give it a name. So let me just create one. I'll delete it later. So let's just say the name is test, and then I'm the owner. So you can decide to create a public or a private repository. You can decide to add a README file if you want to. It's good to have one if you're building a project. So it's good to have a README file, but for now, let's just leave that. You can also add a git ignore. That's a file that basically contains those files that you don't want to push to GitHub. So yeah, so these are some of the basic things that you can do. These are also optional for now until maybe you're building a project and then you would need to do that. You can also add that. So now I've just created a repository called test. So what I can do is you can just so the first thing, there's already an instruction here for you to actually follow, right? So I can basically copy the HTTP or SSH. If you are using SSH, it means you have to like configure SSH on your laptop, SSH key, for you to be able to freely work with the repo. But you can just use HTTPS so that you don't run into any key or security issues, right? So you can just copy the link to this repo, and then go to your terminal. So if you're on Windows, you can go to your command line. If you're on Mac, you can look for, where did I have this pinned on my system? So you can go to any of your terminal and then clone the repo. So you move to any directory that you want to have that repository, clone it, yeah, move to that directory, and then you can do git clone to clone that repo. So git clone basically creates a copy of that repo on your local machine. Yeah. So it says I've cloned an empty repository. Yes. So currently the repository is empty. So what you can do is basically, if you check on my desktop, you should see tests. This is the repository. So it's basically a folder, but currently it's an empty folder. So it's an empty repository, but this is a Git repository. So you can go into that repository or open it on your VS Code, or basically, I like doing this. So open it on your GitHub, on your, what's it called? On your VS Code. Yeah, so you can do that by either opening VS Code, go to File, open a folder, open folder. This is the folder is here, open it, and then to open, or you can do this, what I did, going into the folder using your CD. So CD means like go into this folder, and then use the code dot command to open it up. Okay, so this is the repository. I now have it opened on my VS Code. So you can basically, let me just create an index.js file here, and then just do console.log, whatever. just do something. Yeah. So now I want to push this I want to update this my local repository with my remote repository. Yeah. I want them to be, I want it to be up to date, or basically I want to push what I have done to my remote repository. Right. So if you see here, you see that they are giving some instructions here. They said data dash, it's basically coming from somewhere. So if you've done this kind of thing before, sorry, if you've done this kind of thing before, they say you can basically clone with this, or you create a new repository from your command line. So this is the second option of creating a repository, but we'll come to that. So, or you can push an existing repository from the command line. So what we can do, because we now have, this is already an existing repository, yes, that we just cloned to our local. So I've just done something. Yeah. So if you see this icon here, it's showing source control. So what is showing me is that I have one changes in this Git repository that I have not published yet, that is not pushed live. So how do I do that? I can just, because this is already a Git repository that I cloned, I can just use the command git add, right? Git add what I want to add, put the file name, which is index.js, it will add that specific file. But because you might have multiple changes, right, lined up that you want to add. So you can just do git add dot. It will add everything, even if you have 1,000 files that you've made changes to, it will add everything for you, right? Or you can just come to this place beside the file that you want to add and click this plus icon here. It will stage the changes for you. If you have multiple files and you don't want to start going over each of them one after the other, you can just click on and come up here where you have the changes. You can also click on the plus icon. If you click this plus icon, it will stage all the changes for you. Meaning if you have 1,000 files or any number of changes you've made, it will add everything, right? So you can, these are many ways to basically add. So you can just do git add, put the name of the file, or git add dot, git add space dot, and then it will add everything. So what I've just done now is that I've staged the changes, meaning I've added it, but I have still not pushed it to my remote branch. At this stage, I can still remove it. If I click this minus sign, it will unstage it and it will come back to changes. But for now, it's staged, but it's not pushed yet. So there are also ways to push. You can do git push, yeah, and then it will push the change. Or you can come here where you have your commit. Sorry, you're supposed to git commit first before pushing. So you can do git commit -m, and then you put a commit statement, like a sentence. Okay, maybe this is what the this commit statement is basically explaining what changes you have made in that particular commit that you want to make. So I can just say added index.js file, or you can also, like this is me using command line. But you can come up here. If you see here, it's already saying message up here. Enter commit message. Yeah. So you can just paste the commit message here and then click on this commit icon. And when you click this, it's going to commit it, but it has not pushed it yet. So that's when, after this commit statement, you can now type git push, right? And then it will push it. Or there's also another option. You can just type your commit message here, click on this button here, and then there are different options, right? So you can do commit, it will only commit, and then you will come back and push. Or you can just do both in one stage, in one step. Just do commit and push. If you click commit and push, it's going to commit it and then push it at once. So you don't have to go and start typing git push, right? So I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do, you know what, let me use this command line. So I'm going to do this. So at this point, I've committed. It's saying that one file changed, one insertion, blah, blah, blah. And this is the name of the file, right? And then I can do git push. Yeah. So git push is to push those changes, right? So it has pushed the changes to this repository, and the changes is pushed to the branch called main. Yeah. So if I go to my GitHub and I refresh this, I should see what I've pushed in my Git repository. So yes, so you see the index.js file that I created, which I just typed in console.log in it. So that's one way to do that. Another way to do it is you can decide to create a folder, just like I already have here, the file that we're using since last week to do this class. It's not a Git repository because I created it locally and I've not done anything. It's not a Git repository first. And that's why if you see on this source tree icon, there's no changes. It's not telling me that, unlike this one that we just did now, which immediately I created a file and typed console.log, it was already telling me one change is here. But for this one, it's not. So if you read, it say the folder currently open doesn't have a Git repository, right? So currently there's no Git repo. It's not attached to any Git repo, right? But we can make it a Git repository. Now, how do we do that? And that's the command, that's the instruction they were showing us earlier here, the first instruction that they were showing earlier. So how do we do that? We need to initialize a Git repository in this folder. So you can do that by typing git init, hit enter, or you can basically click on this icon and then it initializes git init in this folder. So it's either you type git init. If you type git init and hit enter, it will initialize this and make it a initialize git in this folder and make it a Git repository, right? But for now, it is still not published yet. And that's why you can see that it's saying publish your branch here. So it is now a Git repo. You can now see that it's telling me that I have 3 changes on this repository. And these are the changes: the index.js file, I have control structure, I have .ds underscore store file. So yeah, it's saying we have 3 changes already on this repository. So I can now, so I just intentionally hit enter, and it's saying reinitializing existing Git repository. So it's already seeing it as an existing Git repository because I already clicked initialize repository here earlier, if you saw what happened then. So when I hit this again, it's now saying that I'm reinitializing it again, right? So now with this change, I can do my git add dot all, or I can just click on the plus icon here and it will add everything here. Then I can put a message here. Let me just say message. I'm going to delete this anyways. So, and then so I've staged it. I've added a commit message. I can then just click on commit and push. So now it's telling me that my repository has no remote configured to push to. So that's because I do not have any remote repository on my GitHub associated to this particular folder or this particular local Git repository. So that's why it asked me that question. And then I'm supposed to say add. Oh, it has disappeared. So let's do git push. So now it says, So I have to, so no configure push destination. Yes, that's because there's no Git repository upstream. Like there's no Git repository on Git that is expecting this, right? So I need to configure that. Yeah. So it's saying that it's either I specify a URL where I want it to push to, and then push using the remote name, or so I can do git remote add, then put a name and then the URL. So add, I think the name of my name is Mary quotes, right? And then a URL, my hold on. I need to put a URL. Which git setup remote. So I need to add URL here. I need to confirm the URL I'm supposed to add. So let me use this first. If is this supposed to be my username or my actual name? So let's just say Mary. No. Okay, so yeah, then let's do git push. No configure push destination. Specify the URL from the command line or configure a remote repository using git. Yeah, that's what I just did. What I'm not sure of now is, am I using the correct URL? Then push using the remote name. Okay, sorry. So actually, so let me put my complete name first. No, let me see if I, let me check the URL first and be sure that I'm not making any mistakes. So git config. No. Please hold on, let me confirm. Okay. Um, Get remote, remove the origin of the obtained URL of this remote. This remote get URL origin dash push. That's not so that the local digital was originally cloned from. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Okay. Let me rephrase. Okay. Um, Get show promote your set get. I'm trying to speak the English in my head. Okay. No, instead of wasting so much time, let me. So basically, first of all, this is, I think I'm missing this URL or my, I don't know, or my Git name now. It's been a while I used this. Let me put my full name first and see. Git remote add. Okay, that's fetch the remote branch, import all tags and associated objects, or do not fetch any. Master branch will set up remote as a mirror to push to or fetch from. Mirror cross push. Okay, so it says name URL. Okay. And am I supposed to wrap it in a string? Forgotten. Let's add. It's not a valid remote name. Okay. Remote Mary already exists. Okay. So it means I've already pushed. So I need to already created one. So I need to do git push. Git push origin lane. Let's see. Does not appear to be a Git repository. Could not read from remote. So please make sure you have the correct access rights and the repository exists. Okay. Hold on. I think I need the help of ChatGPT here. Okay, so initialize to question this to um, okay. Okay, however, I get the message that says it's not a Git. It's not a Git repository. Oh, I didn't even complete the question. How do I make it a remote simple? Let me see if ChatGPT will give me what I'm looking for. I think I missed a step to get in it. Okay, so verify if your remote is set up. So let's verify first. if we have a remote. Okay, yeah. We already have two safe. Okay, so we've already added that. We've done this. Yeah, so if nothing is listed, you need to add a repository. We've done that already. So the step 4 is to git remote add origin, your repo URL, which is what I was trying to do before. So let's do this. Okay. And then you can do git add. And git commit. So git commit, let's do message. We've done commit before, actually. Nothing to commit, working tree is clean. Yes, that's because we've committed before. So if I do git push, okay, so yeah, we are getting what we need to get. So I think where I missed this was, I think the URL was actually correct. So git remote add origin. I'm trying to figure out where I missed it. Okay, so I think so where I made a mistake was after doing git remote add the name and the URL of my repository of my GitHub URL. I was supposed to do git add origin and then put the URL and then do git add and then git commit, which are those commands I told you before. Although after doing all these things, if you go to GitHub, you will still not see it. You have to like run this particular command to push it upstream. So I'll just copy this command here. So if you read here, it says the current branch main has no upstream branch. So to push the current branch and set the remote as upstream, use this. So I'm going to copy this and then paste it here and run and send it. Not found. Repository, this not found. Okay. I think there's still an issue. Git-m, these are not what I did. Git branch dash to push the repository. Do git branch dash m main. Okay. Then git push. Still not found. Okay. There's definitely an issue somewhere, which I'm not sure we have missed for now, but we've already wasted like a lot of time here. So the main thing is I wanted to show you how you can actually push your changes or create a repository from scratch, which we've done successfully with the first procedure. You can basically create a repository, clone it, and then do your things and then push. That's one of the easiest actually. Then this one is another way to do that. To avoid this plenty drama that I did here, what you can do is if you create a repository on your GitHub, you can actually follow that first page that I was showing after I created that repository. It has the steps outlined one after the other on that screen. So you can either, grab that screen and keep it somewhere so that you can use it subsequently if you want to be using this way. But you can also decide to do a stress-free this thing by basically going to create your repository by yourself first and then clone it. So these are some of the ways you can actually do that. I would have to check if I'm getting the URL wrong or my name. Something is shut. wrong with this, but we won't waste so much time here. So yeah, I hope this was helpful, Sha, even though we ended up not being able to successfully push this thing to show commits. Anyway, I'll figure this out later. Okay, so yeah, so that's it for pushing your work to GitHub. We have comments. Yeah, that's what we did initially. Yeah. Oh, okay. Using the URL to now do the remote, yeah. Yeah, I think that should also be an option because I wasn't pushing to a specific repository. Yeah, you can actually try that. All right. So what we have today is, sorry, I've moved around. Here's my slide. Okay, so last week I wasn't able to demonstrate these comparison operators and assignment operators. I don't know if anybody tried it out on their own. Did anybody try any of these operators and see how it works? Anybody? Please, if I'm asking questions, respond, let me be sure that I'm talking to people.
No, I didn't try it apart from the assignment I did.
Hello, Mary, please can you repeat the question?
Sorry, I said last week I wasn't able to like go over, demonstrate this comparison operator and the assignment operators. And then I asked if anybody tried it out to see how it works.
No, I didn't try it from my end. I only did the assignment.
Okay, but like, does anybody remember what I said about these comparison operators, how they work?
Yes, I remember. Said for this and it means that it's using the first or the second. It means it can either work and and with this. Why for or means that it's done with A or B. So it returns Boolean, and that's what you said in the last class. And you said for this not is that is the opposite of what the function is actually saying. If you say A uh, A is equals to B, so it is with this not is it will, if it is true, it will return false, and this equals to I can only talk about and or and not.
Okay, I think I got the not part, which was correct. Then the and, I don't know. I didn't hear what you said about the
Okay, for
and.
this and now, it is that A and B, it will return Boolean if it is true or false. And it's just, we just explained that if you are using these comparison operators, that you can use to compare two variables together, like A, I'm just using an example, A or B. So it will return if if A is greater than B, is it true or false? So that's for the case of and. But for or, it is either A, is either we pick A or B. You understand? Is either we pick orange or mango. So that's for it's that. So and the return, the result is that is based on the boolean. Is that true or false? I don't know if I.
Okay, thank you. So,
Okay, let me try. Can
yes,
I try?
please. Yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
so you are for and you said
Yeah,
when all conditions are met, that is when A and B, when they are met, the conditions for A and the conditions for B are met, they will return true. But for all, it is when one of the condition is being met. That is either you pick A or you pick B. Then for the not, you said it negates the Boolean. Then I can't remember the other one.
okay.
I think that
Thank you very much. Who just spoke now? Abimbola. Is it Abimbola? Okay, so yeah, Richard says for and both conditions must be met. Yes. Okay, so what I said last week, yes, is for the and operator, both conditions must be met. So for you to even use the and operator, it means you have two conditions, right? And before it will return true. If any of them is not true, then the condition returns false, right? But then for the or operator, you would also have two conditions to use or operator. Now, if those two conditions, and so what the or operator, one of the two conditions, once one of them is true, or once one of the conditions is met, then it returns true. It doesn't matter if the other one is not true. It doesn't matter if the other condition is not met. And then the not operator, it negates. Thank you to the people that answered. You were right. So then these are two other operators that I also added, right? So we have it's basically the equality operator, the loose equality operator, and then the strict equality operator. So I'm just going to do a few demonstrations so that you can see how this works in practice, and also these assignment operators, and then we can move over to the session for today. So let me just use this place. So for instance, sorry, I'll copy this. Yeah, so let's say I have these two strings. For instance, this is an example, right? You might have a more suitable scenarios where you can actually use these operators. But let me just use this for now. So for instance, I have person 1 to be Esther, and then I have person 2 to be Mary, right? These are their names. Now, I want to demonstrate the AND operator. So I'm now saying, maybe I'm giving a condition, or I'm doing a check basically to know if person 1, if person's person 1's name is Esther and person 2's name is Mary, right? I want to check if these are their names. Now, depending on the result, I will now know what I will now perform a certain action, right? So I'm just going to use an if block. So if person 1 is equal to Esther and person 2, sorry, I have this AI trying to suggest help me complete the code. Maybe I'll just use that. Okay, so I have this condition, right? I have this conditional statement here that first of all, so this is the condition itself inside this bracket. Now the condition is saying, is checking if person 1's name is actually Esther and if person 2's name is Mary, right? If this is the case, then go into this if block and console log this statement for me, right? So now I'm expecting, based on the AND condition, I'm expecting that this particular condition should return true, evaluate to true. right? Because person 1 is actually Esther here, and the value of person 2 is actually Mary. So if I run this
Please,
code,
I can't see your declaration. Your
which
line 1 and 2.
you
I
can't
can't
see,
see it.
you're not seeing my line 1 and 2. Can you see it
Oh,
now?
okay, I can see it now. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so maybe I should, do I need to zoom my this thing in? How do they even do that? Command
I think
plus.
it's fine now.
Okay, so yeah, so if I run this node, no, this is control structures, so control structure dot JS. So
What structures? Input X.
okay, yeah, I missed S. Thank you for that. Okay, so yeah, so if I run this, it's going to print this. And the reason why it actually went inside this block to print this is because this condition evaluated to true. Now, let's say, for instance, I mistakenly I typed May instead of Mary. Let's see what happens then. So we didn't get this console log. Why?
Sorry,
Because
why is this showing these main bracket and all this? It wasn't showing this way in the previous where the last week we were doing. Like this JIT dot main in bracket and this yellow star something.
and that's because we have initialized Git inside this
Oh,
inside this folder.
okay.
Yeah. We just initialized Git here in this folder earlier. I don't know if you remember. Yes.
Yes, when we are going to push it to
Yes. That's
G.
why it's showing Git here. And that's why you can see this main here. And that's why if I'm making changes, you're going to this, that's why you're seeing this clock something. This is source tree. This is basically keeping track of changes that you have made in your file. So so yeah, so now we can see that this didn't get printed. Why? Because this condition evaluated to false, right? And for if block, I mean, we're going to talk about that in today as well. So I won't go much into it. Let's just focus on the
Hello,
operation
please.
now.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so if both of them are not going to give us the result we want, is it not supposed to give us a false result instead of not giving us anything?
We didn't tell it to do that.
Oh, okay. The
Remember,
condition is they are both learning
the
JS.
condition is if it is true, do this. But we did not tell it what it should do when it is false.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Do you understand? If we now want something to happen when it is false, then we can now come out of here and say console.log, maybe do so. You can now give it an instruction. So I'm going to my own instruction is console log and say this is not true. Or maybe say results is false. So let me just say this. So if I run this code now, it's going to print out this line now for me because now I've given it an instruction. I've said, okay, if it is true, go into this block and do this. But if it is not, then because what happens is if this is false, it will not even consider what is inside here anymore. Like it will not go inside of this brace that you're seeing here. Any code that is inside of this block will no longer be considered as long as this condition that is in here is false. It can only be considered or be seen or even, JavaScript can only go inside this block when the condition here is true. I don't know if that makes sense. So if I run this now, we're going to get the other line of code, which is result is false. So remember, the code is basically the instruction you give to it. What you tell it to do is what it will do. I don't know if that makes sense.
I
Okay,
have a
so
question,
Yeah,
please.
it
yes,
does.
Instead of having the printing, instead of printing out the result is false, can we have else inside that block of if? Instead of saying console log result is false, can we just include maybe else?
I am not doing that now because we've not gotten to
Okay, all right.
that class yet. Yes. So I'm doing this intentionally. So we've not talked about control structures. So that's why but I mean, I had to use this if to show you this. That's why I'm even bringing it here in the first place. So yeah, so this is what we are saying do, right? So basically what we to do is we to check this condition. If it is true, it will go into this place and execute any number of code you have inside of the if block. If you have 1,000 lines of code inside of here, it will go and execute them, right? If you're doing automation, for example, and you're saying maybe check that on the screen, you can see a sign up button. If you can see a sign up button, then go ahead and sign up. So it means that inside of this if block, that's where you will now put all the conditions or all the steps it takes to sign up. Do you understand? And then it will go in and sign up. And then if not, it will come out. It will not go inside of this in the first place. It will just jump this and then proceed and execute any code that you have outside of this if block. Do you understand? So that's what basically is happening. So that's for AND operator. Now, if we are dealing with OR operator, so let me just change this to OR. So if I change this to OR, this particular condition would evaluate to true, right? Now let's see what happens. So if I clear this and then run this code again, we're going to get those two console logs printed out. Does anybody know why we have both of them?
Yes, because both the first condition is true. So it's either is true or the second two is maybe either of the two must be true for that or to be positive. Why the
Okay.
other console log have to be printed also because it's outside of the condition.
Perfect. So yes, that was why both of them, because I know I asked because some people might be like, okay, I mean, it is true. So why is the false one also printing? This is actually outside of the if block. So it doesn't matter if the condition is true or false, it will still print out. This one is not limited by condition, right? The only one that is limited by condition is the one inside of the if block. So yes, this is evaluating to true because once any of the condition is true, it evaluates to true. So that's all for you. Now, what now happens when I now come and say, I now put the not operator here, maybe add it here, right? I'm going to comment this out. So what did I just do here? Let's see, Mary, you have the correct words here. And then what I did now is for the not, right? I just added not here, and then I added not here. So what should we expect to happen? Anybody? Can anybody guess what will happen? Okay, so let's run the code and see. Nothing printed.
Since it negates Boolean method, so I think nothing should come out.
Okay, so yeah, what it means is that what it means is that what this means is that we are saying that person, we know that the value of person is Esther, right? So now we are now saying that this person here is no longer Esther because we are negating using this not now. It means initially the value of person was Esther. which is true. But we have just added the not sign beside it, behind it. So what it means is that we are saying that this person is no longer Esther. And we are now using that, whatever value, that's that false, to now compare if it is Esther. I don't know if that makes sense. We are using now a different thing. So we are saying it is not Esther. And now we are now asking if not Esther is equal to Esther, right? So basically, it has negated everything here. It has turned everything. Initially, everything here should actually be true. But because we added this particular not operator, we have now said everything that is here that is true, we have said it is now false, basically. And that's why nothing was printed. So that is that. Now I'm going to also use this
I have
line.
a question. If you remove the not symbol, if you put the not symbol in between, if you replace it with that equal to. So let's say we have if person one, not Esther, rather than saying not person one equals Esther.
It's
I'm
still the
just
same.
thinking out loud, if it will work.
Yes, it's still the same thing.
Okay, because the syntax arrangement is just kind of confusing, right? So I'm just saying, why are you putting it in front, and you get. So that's
Yeah,
my question. Yeah.
I understand. So this is, I put it here because there are some situations in when you are writing code where you just have to, maybe you have conditions here, but you want something to happen in reverse order. You just add that in the beginning, and it will negate everything in that. Like, it will negate the conditions in that field. Do you understand? So, and you don't have to start, maybe self what you have in the condition you have does not include equal to. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. Let's say, for instance, okay, let me use a different example. So let's say, for instance, I have a variable, say, required, right? So let's say you're filling a form, and then maybe you have a password field and it is required, right? Obviously, password is required. So now I am now doing automation, for instance, and I'm now checking that if that particular field is required. So I'm going to say if required, yeah, then field, right? Give it a value. Okay, what if I now have maybe some conditions, because I've faced that while writing automation. I want what is inside of here to happen only if this is false. Do you understand? How do I now make false? Do you understand? All I just need to do is to add that not operator. I know that if you want to read it in the English language, you will be like, if not required, like if, but this, what it basically means is if not required, like if it is not required. Do you understand? Then go in and do this, right? So what I've just done here is that I've just turned this true to false here. I don't know if
Then
that
doesn't
makes.
matter. Yeah, I understand. Doesn't matter the position you put it. So if you put the not required after D, is it going to
If
show a
I put
syntax
it
error?
here, it's going to give a syntax error.
Okay. All right.
So it has to be behind that.
Before. Okay.
Yeah, before. Okay, so yeah. So that's it. I mean, this will still give us the same result because basically it
What
is
if
not.
you remove the commenter that you have console log result is false?
It will print this one now because this will now be the
Okay, so it
default
will
one.
now print the result is false, right?
Yes, because this is outside, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So now, let's go over the operator. Okay, so yeah, we've already started going over the operator. So, the operators now, the assignment operators, right? Let me just conclude with these two. So I have this loose equality operator and this strict equality operator. These two operators are basically checking if a value is equal to a value. It is different from this. This is assignment operator. Do you understand? This is assignment operator equal to 1 equal to. This is assignment operator. This is basically saying this is a variable. Assign this value to this variable, right? So what it means is that anywhere I call this variable, I should get a star. But if you remember when we were doing this, we were actually not assigning this value to this value here to this. We are basically just checking if this is exactly equal to this. If both of them are the same thing, if both of them are equal. So this is basically you using it to compare. Is this equal to this? Are they the same thing? Right? Now, that's the difference between these two comparison operators and this one. Right? Now, what is the difference between this one and this three? Let's see that in play. So this one basically is loose, like the name implies, is not strict. And that means that, for example, I can do something like this. So let's say, let me just do this, comment it back. So let's say, for instance, I'm going to be using console.log here. So I can do console log the result of, say, 23, yeah, equal to 23. So can you guys tell me the data types of this string? So what data type is this?
Integer.
Yeah, and yeah, in JavaScript is number.
Number.
I'm
Yeah, in
sorry.
JavaScript. So this is
String.
this is a string. And those two are two different data types. Yeah, we know that. So, but if I run this code, it will tell me that this is equal to this. So if I run this, it's going to tell me that both of them are equal. Because I'm using this loose equality sign. But if I use this strict one and I run this, it will tell me false. Why? Because this strict equality sign actually not just checks the value, it checks that they are both equal, both in value and in type. I don't know if you understand if that makes sense. It checks if they are equal, both in the value and the type of the variable, right? So it will check the data type and then it will also check the value. So in terms of value, this is 23, this is 23. And that's why the other one printed true for us, right? But this one will go deeper to check their data type. And that's why we are getting false. So that's the difference between these two. So if you're doing something and but basically what is happening is with this the loose equation, JavaScript is doing coercion. Like it's basically used by itself, it's converting this string to number by itself. I don't know if that makes sense. So it's doing coercion, but with this strict equality sign, it cannot do that. This strict equality sign is very strict, just like the name implies, it is strict. You cannot come and coerce me. You cannot come and convince me to tell me that 23 number is equal to 23 string. So that's basically the difference between these two operators. Yeah. So depending on what you're doing, what operation you're doing, if you don't want coercion to happen in any form, in any way, in any manner, just basically go over and go and use your strict equality, right? Equality sign, just to be on a safer side with JavaScript. JavaScript can be crazy sometimes. Yeah, and that's why we now have TypeScript. So some people use TypeScript just to correct some of these problems with JavaScript, because you can't do this in Java, actually. This cannot happen in Java, and you get, in fact, you will even be getting syntax error or something. Yeah, I mean, if you enclose it in a string, it will not throw an error for you, but you can, both of them are not equal, they are not equal. So there's no way, you cannot be doing cohesion there. But it's happening, it's possible in Java. Anything is happening, anything is possible in JavaScript, basically. So yeah, so that's it. Then we have the assignment operators here. And then we have a couple of them. So this is a simple assignment operator, which is, I already explained here, basically used to assign a value to a variable, right? And then we have these compound assignment operators. So we have the plus equal, we have the minus equal, we have the multiplication equal, we have the division equal, and then we have the not equal to. Not equal to, we've already seen that in practice, where we are saying this is not equal to this. So basically, if you are checking, if you are saying this is equal to this, and then you just add your not, it will basically check that this is not equal to this. Yeah. So that's for that one. Then let's say, let's do some of these other ones. I'm just going to do the plus and minus, and then we'll proceed to what we have today. So let's say, for instance, I have, number 1. And then I say equal to 40. And then I say I have age equal to 3. Yeah. So now, and then I have another variable, say sum, let's sum. Sum is equal to 0. Okay, let's say I have another, let's say I have sum. So we know that if we want to now sum these two numbers, we say, okay, for instance, let me just take out, let me just leave off 1. So let's say our age is 40. Yeah, and then we have sum to be 0 for now. So let's say the sum is 0. Yeah. Now, I want to demonstrate the first equality sign, plus equals operator. Normally, I can do, so maybe I want to add another number to this, or I want to add age 40 to sum, right? So maybe what I can do is I'll now say sum is equal to sum plus age. If I do sum is equal to sum plus age and I print it here, I will still get 40. So let's say, for instance, we have maybe, let me use number. We have 4 there. So if I print this, I'm going to get 44. Yeah. The new sum will now be 44. So what if I don't want to write all this plain long journey? I can just come here and do sum plus equal age. If I print it, I'm still going to get the same results, right? Why? So what happened is, in fact, this is exactly the same thing as what I did previously. This and this are the same thing. I don't know if that makes sense. So what I just did is, I want the same variable to hold the result of this addition. I want this same sum variable to be the variable that is holding the value of these two addition, right? Now, because I know that sum is still what I want to use to do this sum here, what's the need of typing sum again? I can just bring these two operators together and then add the other one, which is the foreign body. So what it will do is it will take sum, add it to H, and still store it in sum. That's basically what happens. So this line and this line, they are still exactly the same thing. There's no difference. Are we clear, or is there a confusion? So if I print this, so if I say, yeah, if I print both of them, I mean, sorry, if I printed this before and I printed that. So basically, they'll give me the same results. Yeah. So the same thing goes for, say, I am saying minus equal age. So this can be, maybe this can be subtraction. This is just a variable, right? So you can name it anything. Okay, maybe I should call it older. No. So, okay, let's call it subtract now. It's just a variable, right? It doesn't change. Subtract. Okay. So what will happen is that subtract will minus, so it will be subtract minus age. So we should get around like minus something. If I run this code, we're going to get minus 36 years, right? So that's the same thing that's happening here. So it's equivalent to saying subtract minus age equal to subtract. So that's basically the same thing. So the same thing goes with divide. To do that, you're going to also get the division results for those activities. So it means 4 divided by 40, and we're getting 0.1. So if I do multiplication, we're still going to get the same thing. The same, I mean, the result of 4 times 40, right? If I do exponentiation, I'm going to get the result of exponent 4 and 4 exponents 40. Yeah, they speak it. So yeah, that's basically what this is. So it's just like you shortening what you would have written this thing. So it depends on, so you can so this is usually used maybe when you're doing some kind of loop or something, right? Yeah, so maybe when we talk about loop, you can see that in play. So yeah, that's for these comparison operator and assignment operators. Does anybody have any question regarding them? Any questions? All right, no question, I assume. So let's just go ahead with what we have. So today we are going to talk about, I mean, as a continuation, we're going to talk about control structures.
Not yet, ma'am.
And control. Sorry, somebody's saying something. Is anybody saying something? Okay, so let's go ahead. So control structures in JavaScript are basically the building blocks of decision making. So we use control structures to make decisions, or and then maybe flow through your program or application, right? So it helps you basically determine if a certain action will be done or not, depending on the condition given in that particular depending on condition, basically, right? And the control structures are we have the conditional statements, and then we have loops. Yeah. So we're going to be going into each of them one after the other. So we're starting with the control structures. So the conditional statements, sorry. So conditional statements are used to perform different actions based on different conditions. We've already seen that in play with the if statement, right? So so we have, under the conditional statements, we have if statement. If, so when you have an if statement, you can have a condition and it just requires you to write if, right? You maybe you don't need to put that extra line of code to start saying else, right? I don't know who's talked about else that time, but if I was writing automation or if I was writing code and I can see that there's no really need for me to have an else block, there's no point actually putting it. If I don't have maybe some more specific things I want to happen if the condition evaluates to false, right? In fact, you can read some code and you see that what they have is just the if block, and then they continue their code. And that's because what happens if that result evaluates to false does not matter. If it doesn't matter, then what's the point of writing an extra line of code that would take more space and take more, eat up more, or make your code to run one extra line of code? I don't know if that makes sense. So if it doesn't really matter, then there's no point for you to even add the else block. But you need to also know that there is also an else. When you have if, you might need to have an S, depending on the conditions that you have. All right. So we have the if else, and then we have the switch statement, right? So first of all, the if statement we've seen in action, where I said where we used, I deleted this. So where we used the if to evaluate to check if a condition evaluates to true or false, and then we do something. Yeah. So what happens with if is if this is true, it goes in here and runs or takes, performs the action in here. And that's where you can see the code to execute if your condition is true is within the if block. Now, what if we now have an else, like the other guy suggested? So else, we can now do else. We can put else and then put this condition, right? And then let's comment. Okay, let's take this out. Yeah, so if I run this, what should happen? Okay, the first condition is true. So this is all. Okay, both of them actually evaluates to true. Let's do and. Yeah, so if I run this, it's going to now run only this one, right? As opposed to running the two of them initially. You remember that when we didn't have the else block, it basically also returned this console log. But now we now have an else. And else will only happen if the condition here is false. If this condition evaluates to false, it will now go into the else block. But if it is true, it will not even enter here. It will do this one, and then it will jump out of this whole condition and then continue performing or running any other code you have outside here, right? But if this is false, it will now leave the if and then jump into the else, perform the action, and then jump out and can also continue what it's doing. So that's the difference between when you have else and when you have this thing, right? So now you can also have another if, right? You can also have like else if, yeah? And then, in fact, you can even have multiple else if, depending on the conditions that you have, right? So, but, yeah, depending on the conditions you have, basically. So maybe we want to say else if person one. So let's say the first one is this and this. Also, so this will evaluate to false. So let's say else if person one is equal to Mary. Yeah. Then come here and say, now lie you. You can also have your else or even have another else if. So else, do this, do console dot console.log. I am tired of you people, though. So let's say this should happen, yeah? So if you run this, you're going to have the last line execute, that's this. And that's because this one will evaluate to false. This will also evaluate to false. And then this will now run. But if we put person 2 equal to Mary, this one will execute and then ignore every other thing and come out here and continue anything if at all you have any other line of code. So if we run this now, you're going to see that the second line is what will execute, right? Anything you have in here is also execute. So this is basically how your if-else statement works. So if this is true, come into the if and do this. Else, if this is the one that is now true, then do this. Else, go ahead and do this one. Or you can just have one else. Or you can choose not to even have any else at all. If this is true, do this. If not, continue, just ignore. Depending on your maybe if that's what should happen when when this is false is not relevant to whatever you are writing or the code you are writing, then forget about saying else, do this. I don't know if that makes sense. That's for you to, and the essence is for you to actually optimize your code so that you don't have to waste more time running irrelevant lines of code. Yeah, so that's for
I have
if.
a question, please.
Okay, please go
Can
ahead.
you have a if inside on that if? If yes, what's the difference between using if and else if inside the block of if? So as I have if person 1 equals, as I have if person 1 is equals to Esther, for instance, can I have another if inside this if block? Then what's the
Yes,
difference between yes?
if that means you have a condition, right? Yes, you can. That means, let's say, I want to check if this is true, right? If it is true, then go in there and now check also if maybe, okay, let's say if required, then let me use required now. I have required, right? Yes. So I want this to evaluate to true now. So I'm going to put Mary. So what it means is, let me comment this out. So now I can say if this is true, maybe I have two conditions. Like maybe I have two conditions that are dependent on each other, right? First, okay, let me try to see if I can have a real world scenario that to illustrate that. So maybe, for instance, okay, let's say, for instance, you want to withdraw money, right? First of all, you want to withdraw money using POS, using POS or maybe your ATM machine. It means that you need to have your ATM card, right? And then not just having your ATM card, you need to know the correct PIN for the ATM card. So maybe you want to withdraw from somebody's account. It means you need to have the person's ATM card, right? Then that's first condition to check. You need to have the person's ATM card. If it is now true that you have the person's ATM card, then it will now also check, do you have the PIN, right? So let's say that's the case. In this case, that's the first condition. Let's just use this for the first condition. Is this true? If it is true, now, is it required? Okay, another example to say, if I was saying password, right? So let me just use that. Let field name equal to password. Yeah. Now, I want to check. At first, I want to, maybe I land on a login form page. So first, I want to check if there's a field called password, right? So I will now say, if field name, yeah, I can do if field name is the same thing as saying if field name. So if field name exists, right? This is true. Yeah, so it's just like saying, does this exist? Yes. So now, So if field name exists, so if password exists, then go in here. Now also check if it is required. If it is required, then you now go into this other if and say, let's say console.log type password or enter password. Let's say enter password. Yeah. So what it will do is that it will first check this condition, this first if block. If this is true, then it will now enter here. But once this is false, no matter the amount of if you want to have inside this if, it will not work. I don't know if you understand, if that makes sense. So you can now say, if this is true, then go in here and then check first before it will execute any other code. It will also go into this second if and check if it is required. If it now required, then it will type password. After typing password, it will now come out of this if and then come and try and see if there's another information here before it will now jump out of this if finally. So maybe I can now say here, I have entered password. So if I run this, both of them would actually run. Yeah, so first it will enter the password and then it will come out and tell you it has entered password and then it will now come out of the if. So yes, you can have multiple if depending on the conditions that if you have multiple conditions that are dependent on each other. I don't know if that makes sense.
I have a question. Yeah. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I want to ask, that require, is it a reserved word?
No, it's a variable. You can see that I declared it with let. And then I assigned it.
Oh,
I declared it.
okay, I've seen it.
Yeah. So yeah. I hope I answered your question. I don't know who asked that question, but I hope
Yes,
I answered.
it did, yeah.
Okay, so now we have the switch case statement. Now, this is actually very useful when you're evaluating multiple conditions, right? So it's usually called the switch statement. So you can so basically if you have multiple conditions, yeah, and you don't want to start using if else, you can decide to use the switch statement and use that. Now, what happens with switch is that it takes the expression, what you want to, what you are evaluating, and then it gives the different scenarios or the different case conditions that you are not checking for. And then it has the line of code you want to execute for the first value, if the first value is true, right? And then there's the break point, right? Because if you don't put a break, there's going to be an issue, right? And then it has the default line. That is, when it basically checks all these conditions and nothing is true, it will evaluate and print the default one, the default condition that you are, or the default case that you have put there. So let's say I have, let me see if I can still use, okay. Okay, very good. So now you have field name as password. And let's say, for instance, I'm actually, I have multiple fields, right? Maybe I have first name, last name. I have maybe surname. I have maybe age, date of birth. I have case. So these are different fields that I have. But I want to check I want to look for password in particular, right? And do what I want to do with it, right? So let's try to use switch statement basically do that. So first of all, the syntax looks like this. So you're going to start with the switch keyword. It's a keyword in JavaScript. I'll use tab. So we want to now switch between so this is the field name, which is the condition we want to we are evaluating. And then we now have the different other fields. So I'm going to say case 1, the first case, I have a field called email, right? Now, if it is email, I want to say console.log okay, let me just use this code, right? So the first case is email. If it is email, then do console log and then break and then stop here, right? This break is basically saying if this line has executed, then just end this whole thing and then move out and continue doing anything you're doing here. Because this first case has met our condition here. If not, go over and then, break the code here. But if not, then move to the next case. This next case is password. Don't worry, I want to have more cases. So I want to have case, say, first name, first name. Yeah. And then I want to now say console.log, enter first name. Yes, then break here, right? You can also have another case, say case last name, case last name, right? And then, so now I have like 5 cases. Okay, 4 cases plus the default case, right? So the default case is no field matches, right? So now, if I run this code, it's going to keep running until it gets to this point, and then it will print this statement, right? Because, where's my terminal? Okay, so let me run this. Awesome. So it will run this password because at this point, when it got to this case 4, password was equal to field name. Remember, password is the value of field name, right? So what actually met the condition that we have put inside this switch statement is password. And that's why it printed this line. Now, what if I remove S here and then I run this code? It came and ran the default case because it has checked all these cases. It has switched between all these cases and checked. And it didn't find any match for what we have here. Or it didn't find anything that is making this condition true. Then it printed the default value. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, it does.
Yes,
All
it
right.
does.
All right. So that's switch statements for you. So these are basically different conditional statements that you can actually use. Now let's move to the loops.
Please, I
Loops.
want to ask a question.
Okay, please go ahead.
From what you have here, is
Yeah.
it that is not case sensitive?
What?
Like the field name, where you have the email in capital letter for your case, and when you are entering it in the log, it becomes a small letter for the email.
You mean
Same
here?
for first name and last name, password. The first letter, they are not capital letter like you have them for their case.
Okay. So when we talk about case sensitivity, we are talking about maybe variables, right? That are, or maybe functions, keywords, and all of that. So if you see, this is a string. I might as well. So I'm using console log, right? That's because I'm not doing actual, I'm not performing any actual thing. I don't know if you understand. This could be anything. It could be something like, if it is this case, then do 1 plus 1. Do you understand what I'm saying? Then do, let's say, sum equal to 1 plus 1, and then print sum. Does that make sense? Now, if I run this, did you see that? So it doesn't matter what I put here. This is a string, right? What actually would matter is what actually matters is this particular case here. What I have in my console log has no connection with what is here. I don't know if I'm making sense. The fact that I have last name here is just because I'm just playing around. I don't know if you understand. So this could be anything. This is just like you saying, if this is required, fill the login form, do anything. That's basically what is here. You can say, if the field is password, then fill the password field and continue. I don't know if that makes sense. The reason why I said, okay, let me do this, so that you know that this is not static. It's not cast in stone. This is just me using any random something. Console log might not even come in here actually in any way. But I'm using console log because I want to show you if I'm actually writing an actual test, I won't be putting console log everywhere. Do you understand? I would rather be performing actions and validating actions. I don't know if that makes sense. Because I am not writing the code or writing the automated test or anything I'm doing to come and be console logging it for me. I can only start using console when I'm debugging something, maybe when something is failing and I want to find out where it is failing from or why it is failing. I can now come and start putting console log to check. And then after I do that, after I find out or figure out where my problem is, I will take out all the console logs. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Wow. Okay. So this this is just a string. It could be anything. I can even change it to it is not available. Do you understand? It is not available. Or anything. Anything basically. Right? And this is a string. So I am not really calling a string method on this to come and check, compare. The only time is that would be relevant is maybe I am now comparing this string to this string. That's when I can now be saying, okay, oh, this one is small letter, oh, this one is. I don't know if you understand. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. So yes, so these are that's switch statement for you.
To add, I think I missed that default where there is default. At what point do we use a default after the case? Yes, password. This particular default.
You have put all your different conditions. If you have different cases, if your cases are up to 10, put it. When you are done, you have exhausted all your possible cases, right? The default is there to make sure that it's just like you saying else, then do this, right? So the default is there to say, if you have checked all the previous cases and it didn't match, please just tell us that this is the case. I don't know if you understand what I just said. So
Yeah, I do.
yes, so
Yes,
it's
I do.
so yes, this is like you saying, By the time you have finished all this now, you still did not meet any, you still did not find any, please come here and come and tell us that you did not see it. Or come here and tell us that this is not possible. Or come here and tell us that, Oga, I'm tired. Or just, put your default statement. That is, if you check, you see that I've checked for email, I've checked for first name, last name, password. If you didn't match this field name here, tell us that no field matches. Do you understand? It's just like you searching for an item on maybe Jumia and they don't have the item. They will return no item for you, or maybe the no item match your search criteria. That's what this default is doing. So what you are searching for we don't have it here. So that is what your default this thing will do for you, basically. And yes, it can actually be a console log, or it can also be an action if you want. So I hope cleared those. So yeah, we have loops. So loops are used basically to execute blocks of code or a block of code repeatedly. So if you have a situation where you have to perform some actions multiple times, that's where a loop comes in, right? Because in programming, it is discouraged to have multiple lines of code doing the same thing, right? So instead of you to have multiple lines of code doing the same thing, then why not maybe have a function and then have a function, or use a loop to iterate through that thing and give you a result, right? So basically, we use loop to execute a block of code or to perform an action repeatedly based on a certain condition, right? So you need to have a condition, because if you don't have a condition and you don't have a break, then your loop will run infinitely and your system will just crash, basically. So we have different types of loop. We have the for loop, we have the while loop, we have the do while loop. And we're going to see the difference between each of them. So let's start with the first one. The syntax is this. For the first one, you have the for keyword, and then we have your initialization, where you initialize a variable that you're going to be using, and then you put your condition, and then you put your increment operation, right? And then we have, if the conditions here are met or whatever, then this code will now be iterating. So this loop will basically iterate, we'll be repeating. This line of code here is what you want to happen subsequently, yeah? So this loop will now make sure that this happened the number of times you want it to happen before it will jump out of the loop. So let's see that in practice. I'm going to console log. I'm going to comment this because we have plenty console logs there, so don't want them to keep logging. So now let's say, for instance, I have a let's say let numbers, yeah, and then I have so I have an array of numbers. So let's say 2. It gave me suggestion of an array. Awesome. So yeah. So yes, so I have this array of multiple numbers, 1 to 10 actually. So 1 to 10. Somebody should do the mathematics. What if you add all these together, what should it be? Now we have numbers. So I have this array of numbers, right? And I want to add these numbers together, right? Or I want to loop through these numbers. So I want to go through this array. I mean, this is an array, right? An array is not something that you can just come and you can't just come and start doing 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus. If you do that, you will not that you are not adding, you are not summing what is in this array. You're actually doing your own addition by yourself, right? But now, remember that an array is index based. So if we want to access what is inside this array, we have to now say numbers index 1 or index 0, sorry, it starts from index 0, right? Which is actually equal to 1. So it means that for us to be able to sum everything inside this array, we will now start by doing a plus numbers index 1 plus numbers index 2 plus numbers in fact, that's how you keep writing until you get to know index 9, because that's where to stop, yeah? So what it means is that we are basically repeating an action, right? We are going into the inside this array and performing operations. But we can actually do that by just looping through this array, doing a sum inside of this array, and then it will return a value for us, right? Now, how do we do that? So we're going to write a for loop. So using a for loop, we're going to say for, which is the keyword for the loop. I'm going to do initialization. Remember, the first this thing there is to initialize. So we're going to say let I'm using I because array is index based. Index starts from I. You can actually use anything, actually. You can say A or maybe num. Anything is your choice, is a variable. So, and num, now the condition, right, is what we want to write. So we want this loop to continue looping while num is less than numbers dot length. I don't know if this makes sense. So what I'm saying is, Oga loop, please continue looping until you get to number 10 before you stop. Until you have exhausted everything we have inside of this array. Right? Now, that's the condition now. So this is the condition. So it will keep looping, it will keep running until this length of this array is exhausted. Please, can we mute ourselves? Then the last thing in here is the increments. Richard Akintola is the GitHub Copilot. That's the name of the extension. Okay, so but please, it's not advisable to use it now if you're still learning, so that you can, except maybe you now understand those, like you have understanding of those things, then you can use them. Okay, so it's just like it's AI. So it's GitHub AI. GitHub Copilot is the name. So if you go to extension and type GitHub Copilot, this is extension. Yeah, this is extensions. If you type Copilot, you should get it. Okay, so yeah, this is it. Your AI pep programmer. So it's your assistant programmer. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is the increment. Sorry. So this one will basically make sure that our num is incremented. So I'm going to do plus plus. So you know what plus plus means? Plus plus is like plus 1. The same thing as saying plus 1. Right? It's the same thing as saying plus 1. So num here is like index. So first of all, if this loop runs the first time, so first, before I even do what I want to do, before I do the addition I want to do, let me do console.log numbers index. So this num, in fact, let me just use the word index so that you don't get confused. But this could be anything. You can use I. Mostly you will see I. Like in most, if you look at people's code, you basically see I, right? I equal to 0. I forgot that. So at this, in the first stage, I is 0, meaning this loop, this one is, meaning it's at position 1, because we remember that array is index based and the index starts from index 0. So at this stage, I is 0. So the first time this loop will run, I will be 0, and that will be index 1. So let's see that in play. So let's say now I want it to just loop through this array and print the values at each position, right? So if I run this now, hey God, I've done an infinite loop. Jesus Christ. Okay, so sorry. This is I plus plus. I plus plus. What am I doing? I plus plus. Where is plus now? Plus plus, yes, please. Then while I is less than num.length. Are you even sure that's the problem? Okay, let's see. Control K. Okay, yeah. So yes, I plus plus. So this means please keep incrementing this iteration by 1, right? So I said this is equivalent to I plus 1, but don't come and use it inside here because that's not the syntax, please. So what it means is I plus 1. So in the first instance, at this first stage, I is 0. So this loop will run, right? And print 1 for us because index 0 of this array is 1. Now, when it comes back here, by that time, this particular syntax here has incremented it by 1. So what it means is that I here will now be equal to 0. And in the next time this loop will run again, I will now be equal to 1. 0 plus 1. That's what basically happens. That's what this particular thing will do. It will just pick I is 0 here, and then it will now do plus 1, and then make it 1. And then it will run again the second time. So index 1 is 2, we know. And that's why we printed 2 here. So the third time it will come, it will now become, you remember, I is now 1 plus 1. This one will now make it plus 1. It will now be 3. I will now be 3. No, 2, sorry. 1 plus 1 will now be 2, right? Which will now give us 3 at this point. It will print 3. So that's what is basically happening. So we are just using this loop to retain until this condition here is met. And the condition is saying, while I is less than the length of this array, if we do numbers dot length and we print this, sorry, dot length. So let's do console dot log numbers dot length. If we do this, you will get that the length, oh, sorry, let me comment this out. And I run this. You get that the length of this array is 10. So what it means is almost the same thing as saying while I is less than 10. Keep doing this. Keep looping until I is less than or equal to 10, right? Or until I is equal to 10, right? So that's basically the same thing. But we don't want to hard code any value. It's not advisable to hard code things, right? Because I can say, why, because I know this array is 10. I can now come and write my code and say, until I is equal to or less than or equal to 10. Please keep doing this thing. What if the length of the array, in fact, once I just said until I is less than 10, it means I'm not referring to this array again anyways. It means I'm not talking about this array anymore. It means I'm talking about another thing entirely. It will now take this into consideration, and it will not even remember this array again, basically. It's just like me saying, I want to print odd numbers between 1 to 100. And then I will use a loop and put the condition here, print numbers that are odd numbers between 1 to 100. So this loop will do that. So, but it will not consider this anymore. So, but we want to consider this array. The consideration is the array. So I'm going to be using that, right? So now, the first thing is, let me comment this out now. I'm going to uncomment this. So I'm saying, okay, loop through this array. At each point you're looping through, print the value of I for me. And that's what it did before. So at each loop, at each iteration, on every iteration, print the value of I for me. And that's what it's doing here. Now let's go continue with our mathematics. We wanted to actually do return do a plus. Do an addition of all the numbers in this array. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to declare a variable. I can declare a variable out here and use it in here, or I can just declare it here. I can say let sum of array. Say let sum of array equal to, or let total, anything. So what it means is I will now say num I, sorry, numbers index I. Okay, yeah. Right, okay. Oh God, don't frustrate me. I did not say you should come and be frustrating my life. Okay, so now, yeah, and then, so what I'm doing is, okay, at each point, print I. So what the current value of I plus the next I, right? Yeah. So print the value and print the total sum, basically. So now, I'm going to print this. Okay. Oh, geez. Let me comment this out so that we'll see what is printed. Hold on. So, no, what I'm supposed to do is sum plus equal num I. What I did there was wrong. So, plus equal numbers index I. So what is the problem? This is undefined. Okay, so I'm going to define it outside, or I'm going to do, I'm going to declare the variable outside. Yeah, so let's say sum of array currently at this point is 0. So this is a variable, or we can just leave it. Say, let there be a variable called sum of array. Yeah. And then in here, I want to assign, let me even see what will happen. So now what I'm saying now is, please, at each iteration, take the value. So the first iteration, it will take the value of I and add it to sum. Currently, sum is nothing. Sum is undefined. So let me give it the value of 0 to throw an error because it is undefined and you can't add a number to undefined. So at this point, sum of array is currently 0, it's currently nothing. So what I'm saying is during the first iteration, please take the current value of I, add it to the sum of array and store the value in sum of array. When you come to the next iteration, take the next value of I, add it to the current sum of array that we have. So this way, it will give us the total value of all these summed together. That's the way to get the sum of everything in this array. So if we run this, it's going to give us, so in the first stage, it was this. So when the iteration ran the first time, it did, so the first time it was index 0 and this thing was 1. So basic, and then our sum is 0. So it will come in and do 0 plus 1 and then store this thing here. So the first time sum of array is 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. The second time it came, sum of array is now 1 and this is 2. So it will now do 2 plus 1 is 3 and that's why it printed this. So it actually printed all this because we have our console log inside of this array. So it's going to be console logging at each iteration. Now, if we don't want this to happen, we'll have to bring out our console log outside of the for loop so that this will only be printed when it has completed the loop. When it has finished looping, it will now come out and give us the total number it got here. And that's the only time that's when we can now get, 55 is actually the total sum. I don't know if somebody has actually done the mathematics, but we should get 55 actually.
Yes.
Okay, so if I run this now, I should get 55, which is the sum of the numbers in this array. All right. So this is one way to actually do this. Right. Now, in JavaScript, their array has methods that can actually simplify this for you, but I'm going to leave this for now until we get to arrays. When we talk about arrays, you can see a method that allows you to actually perform this operation that we have just done here with this loop in a single line of code, and it will give you the same results. So, but for now, let's focus on the topic of the class. Oh my God, I've stayed more than 2 hours in this class. Okay, so the next one is while loop, right? So we use the while loop to execute some lines of code as long as a certain condition is true, right? So what you do is while you now check, first of all, you check the condition, and then if it is true, keep doing this, right? So you have while a condition is true, then continue doing this thing. So what it basically does is, if this is true, it will keep running and running and running and running and running. The loop will keep running over and over. I already mistakenly demonstrated an infinite loop for us, right? Imagine I leave that +1 here. This loop will keep running. If you come back 5 years later, it will still be running. That's if this laptop is still alive by then. If it doesn't break or crash, right? The loop will still run. So make sure that if you're writing a loop, or if you don't increment at all, if you don't put this statement, it means that if this loop keeps running, I will remain 1 and will remain 0, sorry. I will remain 0 and it will keep looping because it will come back again and check, is I 0? Is I less than, sorry, is I, is I, now, is I still less than the length of the array? If I is still 0 and it is not incrementing, it will keep being less than the length. So this loop will keep running infinitely, no stopping. So please, when you're writing a loop, make sure that you're keeping a condition that will break that loop, that will make it stop, right? And in this case, we have this I++ that would increment, and then we have this condition that says run until only when this I is less than the length of the array. Do you understand? So yeah, so that's that for loop. For the while loop, we have while a condition is true, keep doing this. So I'm going to still use this condition. So, but what happens is in this case, we'll use the keyword while, and then we'll now put our condition here. So I'm going to say while numbers, while numbers dot length. What am I doing? So I'm going to say while numbers dot length is, or sorry, is so while I need a value to so while num dot length is 10, so this is 10. While let me declare a variable. So it means I'll have to declare a variable outside of here. So let's say let I, yeah, and then I is equal to 0. So now I'm going to now say while I is less than this, then go in here and say maybe do console.log console.log console.log. Let me take this out and also take this out. Yeah, so I'm saying while while our I, yeah, which is a variable we've declared out here that is currently 0, while it is less than this, please print out the value of I for us. So if I run this while loop, okay, I've done another infinite loop again, and so it is running endlessly, right? It's still running, oh. It's still running. So I'm going to stop this. I'm going to stop this. Okay, I didn't call you, Siri. Okay. Please. Okay, so I'm going to clear this. So I've just done an infinite loop again, right? So what I can
Sorry,
do,
how did you stop it again? How did you stop the loop again?
Okay, I did Control C on my terminal, Control C to stop it, right?
Oh,
Yeah, so that's how I stop. I stop either if you have something running on your terminal, you can just use Control C to stop it. Yes, I think it's the same thing on Windows too. So yeah, this is an infinite loop basically, because there's nothing that will break this. At this stage, I will continue to be 0, and it will continue to be less than the length of the array. So it will keep running endlessly. So what I can do is, while I is less than this, print this. Then on the next line, I'm going to put something that will break this loop. So I'm going to increment I. So I'm going to say I plus plus, right? And that's it. So this will basically break this loop for us. So because initially, so what it should do is to first come, it will check the condition. Is I less than the length of this array? Yes, it will enter here and run. Then it will go back again. Is I still less than this? If it is yes, it will enter here, run. it will go back and check, is I still less than this? So it will keep checking the condition until the condition has been broken, right? Or until the condition evaluates to false, then it will stop. So if I run this now, I'm going to get this. So this is how while loop works. So the while loop will basically check a condition first before it now executes the code or anything. And then please make sure that you have something that will make this, something that will at some point make this condition here to be false. If not, this loop will run infinitely. So have something that will negate this particular thing at some point, right? So now, this is while loop, right? Now we have the do while loop. So this particular do while loop is, it will basically execute. So at every time it runs, before it checks for any condition, it will first do something first. It will do whatever you say you should do before it will now go and check for condition, right? And then it will now check the condition. And then if the condition is true, it will go back and do that thing again. And then depending on what the conditions that you have put. So it will check. It will first of all come in. And if you say console, it will first console log that thing for you first. Then it will now go and check, is this condition true? If it is true, it will go back, console log again. If it is true, it will go back, console log again. But if it is false, it will first of all do that thing. It will do that and then it will now check, is it false? If it's false, it will now stop. But if it is not false, it will keep doing that thing, keep doing that thing, keep doing that thing, right? So let's see that in play. So I'm going to do. So the do, I'm going to put a statement, what it should do for us. So I want you to, let me comment this one out now. So now, while, I'm going to call the while, and then I'm going to say while I is less than array.length, I less than array.length. So now what we are saying is, first of all, whether before it will come and check this condition, it will first of all print this for us, right? I'm putting this here to break the loop. If I don't put it, it will not break it. So that's why you still see here this here. So if I run this now, first of all, it will print 1. That's the first thing. Yeah. And then it will now increment it and then come and check this condition. Is I less than length? If it is less than length, it will then go back again and do it again until I is no longer less than the length, right? So now, in this case, so let's do another scenario where I is not less than length. So let's say maybe, let me now say I is equal to 10. I is equal to 10. I is not 10. Yeah, I is equal to 10. So it's not equal to, it's not less than this thing. So if I run this loop, it's going to run only once. Do you understand? It ran only once. And it says I is undefined. Yes, because at this stage, it has not seen this numbers.array. Like it is not, at this point, it has not done any, like it has not done any, it has not, at this point, num I is still is undefined. Do you understand? Because remember, it is not seeing this I, and at this point, it is also not seeing, it's not seeing this, hold on, no. But why is it printing on this should actually be 1. Why is it printing undefined? This is number array, yes. Let me see. Is it because of the block? Actually, I'm thinking this should actually print 1. Why is it printing this? Anyway, the bottom line is this condition will first of all print. So let's say, for instance, let me just leave this. I have a sentence here, say, I am here. Yeah, I am here. Right? Print, I am here. Then, okay, maybe do this. Okay, no, let me just leave that. So basically, if I run this, it's going to run this, I am here, right? I mean, it's going to do this. I just want to show us that it actually executed this particular line first, before it now came to check this condition. If this condition is less than I, which is 10. And obviously, 10 is not less than the length of this array, because the length of this array is equal to 10. No, it's actually 11. Abi? The length, no, it's 10. Right? The length of the array is 10. Yes. So, but 10 is not less than 10. The only time this particular thing will evaluate to, will run, is when I say less than or equal to, or maybe equal to, right? So just know that the do while loop will always first run your condition, your state. It will always return something. And that is what that thing that it will check, that it will do first. So it will perform an action first before it will even go to the point of checking a condition. So whether your condition is true or false, it has first of all done something first before it now checks if your condition is true. So now if the condition is not true, it will now go back and do it again. That's when it will now go back and start looping and looping until the condition is, as long as the condition is true, it will keep doing it. Else, until when it is now false, before it can now stop or before it can now change. So yeah, that's for the do while loop. I don't know if anybody has any question so far. Very good. Any question? Any question from any of the things that we've discussed today? Or is there anything that is not clear? I have my assignments for you. I've not seen your previous week's assignments too. So
Sorry, I
please.
have a question for not really this do why. I wanted to ask in this last video, like say I'm seeing your index.js file and your folder and also the control structure. How do you see the other let's say now I created a file named lesson and I want to create another folder too, and I want to be able to access different folders aside this particular lesson. How do I see it? Or I can only access one folder at a time. And if I want to create another folder, then I won't be able to have access to this particular folder again. Is it like there's a place where you can see all the folders that you've created or you've imported
So if I'm to get your question right, you say, for instance, you have,
to this
oh, okay, you're still talking. Please go ahead. I stopped hearing you at some point.
Oh, sorry, I'm having a call. So my question is, you import a folder to Visual Studio.
I've stopped hearing you again.
This folder, sorry, name lesson.
Okay. This your call is really disturbing you. Okay, let me answer the question from what I understood, at least based on what I heard. So you said
Can you
maybe,
hear?
okay, I can hear you.
Okay, my question is, so when we started the class, or let me say at the beginning, so we imported a folder from our locals to this place, and the name of the folder now is called lesson before you created files inside them. So my question is, lesson as a folder. If I want to create another folder, because I tried creating a new folder, I couldn't see the other folder that I created and the works that I did. So I have to. So my question is, can you see multiple folders? That is not multiple files. Can you see multiple folders in this place and still work on them differently?
Okay, so I'm going to answer your question in two ways, right? First, if I have a folder, which I actually currently do have, this is lessons, right? This is one folder, or this is a repository. Just like saying having more than one repository. Do you understand?
Exactly.
So now I have this repository, which is lessons, right? I now have another folder. So it is either you come inside of lessons, create a different folder. That's if you want to be seeing it in your VS Code.
Okay.
Create the folder here, or open the folder inside of this folder. So it means that inside of lessons, basically, both of them need to be in one folder again for you to actually be, and then you bring now that parent folder inside of this VS Code. So what it means is, for instance, you know what, let me just go to where I have this, right? And then I create a new folder, say we are testing, or say testing. So this is a folder. If I go into my VS Code, I should see testing folder here. I can create a file inside of this folder, name it index.js. So this means I now have two folders. I now have testing inside of lessons folder. I can have another folder too, right? Not inside testing now. I want to have this folder inside lessons. So I can go here, create a new folder, name it another thing that I like, right? That's if you want to actually be accessing all of them in VS Code at the same time. I don't know if what I'm saying is making sense. But if that is not the case, maybe there are two different projects. Do you understand? There's no point trying to access both of them in the same, like on VS Code at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Good. So if you want to have this scenario, this kind of, maybe you want to have multiple folders and you want to be able to access them. I'm not saying that's not possible. I mean, I have a project, where that I'm working on, and I have so many repositories in one project. Do you understand? Now we have different Git repositories. So if you go to Git, they are different repositories on their own. But we have them in one project. Do you understand? Just like a company. A company can have 10 repositories, 10, but you'll be able, if you, so what it means is, if you go and clone that project, you can see those repositories. Do you understand? In one, as in VS Code as one. I don't know if you understand. Like I even currently have one on my laptop, but I can't show you that. I don't know if that makes sense. So depending on the scenario, it is possible. But when you want to now, what it means is that, for instance, if I want to run, let's say for instance, this untitled folder, that's where I have my control structure. I'm moving my control structure in there, and then I'm moving my index.js inside that one. So now I have two folders inside of lessons folder. So now, if I want to run, let me rename this to a name that makes more sense. So I can call it name. Yeah. So now, if I want to run this, if I run this file now, it's not going to see it. Do you understand? I'll run into an error. Do you understand? That's because I am currently inside of lessons folder, but I want to run something that is inside of index, inside of a name folder, right? Inside another directory. So what it means is I have to find my way into the name directory, or I will do what? I will put the correct file path. So, and that file path will now be /name/control structure. If I run it like this, I'm supposed to actually get an error. Internal modules not found. Cannot find module. Hold on, I think I don't need the first slash. So I'm going to take this out. Yes, so now I'm able to run it. So what I'm saying is, inside of lessons, check for name folder. Then inside of name folder, check for control structures, right? Or I will cd into name first. You can see now that what I now have here is name instead of lessons. And then I can now run my control structure independently again. So the same thing goes for if I want to now run what is inside of testing. It means I have to come out from name, enter testing, yeah, before I cannot run what I have inside of testing, if I have anything inside of testing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, any other question?
Hello, Mary.
Yes, please.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, please. My question is private. I don't know if I can after the lesson, so that I will not delay the class. I can chat you up so that we can just
Okay.
attend to me. Like to not take up to 1 hour. Yeah.
Up to 1 hour.
Thank you.
Did you say
No,
1
it will
hour?
not be up to no. I did not say 1 hour. It will not be up
That means
to.
it will be tomorrow. Okay. All right.
Okay. Okay. Should we do it tomorrow?
Please, tomorrow, please. I've been on my toes since morning. I just
All right, no problem. Like what time?
please just chat me up. I'll give you a time, please. Thank you. Let me not just say now. Tomorrow is Sunday. I have to go to church and all that.
Hi, Mary. Good evening.
Yes,
Can
who
you
is
hear me?
yes, who is speaking? Yes,
It's
please.
Alfred. It's Alfred actually. So Alfred, yeah. So I have this issue, but I don't know. Maybe I'll just do a screenshot on this Slack channel and send it to you. It's about pushing from my VS code to GitHub. The issues I'm having is it's telling me fix login test errors and resolve duplicate key warning. So what I do is I try to just practice, like maybe do 1 or 2 practice on my own after I learn. So I had difficulty pushing to GitHub on that, and it's already there, but maybe I'll just do a screenshot and send to you. That's
Okay.
the error message I have. It's telling me I should resolve duplicated key. Is it like a warning or something like that?
Okay. You can send me a screenshot on Slack and I'll check.
Okay.
Yeah, Slack, please. Yes.
Thank
And then we can look at it and try to resolve one. Please, what extension are you using? I think I've answered that, Richard. Then Sammy said, please, can you show us how we can apply some of the things you have taught us in real life testing? Okay, you're still going to do playwright test automation, right? You are actually going to be using this thing, applying these things there, right? So what you are telling me now is, I don't know if you're saying I should write tests now. That would be running faster than our shadow. So the essence of the JavaScript is for you to understand some of these concepts so that when we eventually start Playwright and we're using some of these things there, you're not confused. You can now remember that, oh, okay, this is some of the things that we actually did when we're doing JavaScript. I hope that makes sense. Don't worry, just calm down. Try to assimilate it first. Try to understand it first. And then when we get to testing, we would use that. That's basically what you're going to be using to write your test. So, and we're going to be writing tests, testing real life application. So yes, when we get there, we'll cross that bridge. Let's not try to answer that now and then confuse ourselves at the end. Any other question from anybody? Any other questions? Okay, I think that'll be all. Thank you very much, everybody that joined the class. See you guys tomorrow. Oh my God. Yes, tomorrow.
Thank you, Mary. Mom, I will see.
Deborah, you have a question or what were you saying?
Please, can we get the slides?
The slide, yes, please. I'll share it.
All right, thank you.
No, I'm just saying thank
So
you.
can we get the recording tonight?
The recording, I think that will be for these people to answer. I don't know.
Okay. Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome. See you guys. All right.
Yes, I'm sorry.